Hello again, everybody. Well, I wanted to make a follow-up video to the hot topic that's going around now concerning Paul McCartney's voice, his vocals, particularly how he did when he sang recently on Saturday Night Live's 50th anniversary special when he did Golden Slumbers, Carry That Weight, and The End. Now, some people may feel that this topic already has been done to death, but the purpose of this video and why I decided to make it was because I'd been watching other people's videos. I've been watching a few live stream broadcasts, and I've read fans' comments, and I really want to respond to a lot of them. And I was trying my best in some cases to type in, a quick comment and participate. But I thought, what if I just made a video with the 10 top talking points that people have been making regarding me and my videos, or people in general who are making videos, and in general, when they try to have Paul McCartney's back and try to defend him, which I completely appreciate and I completely understand. I mean, I do both. I defend Paul so much it's not funny. And there's times when I have to defend my stance if I say something a little critical. That goes for all four of the Beatles, not just Paul. But Paul's very active and he's out there all the time. So he's in the spotlight a lot. All right. Now, let me just tell you before I go, and I hope you'll watch this whole thing, before I start going into the 10 talking points, let me tell you where I really stand with Paul McCartney. Now, I've noticed, as much most of us have, in the past, 15 years, I don't know if I want to say 15 to 20 years, Paul's voice has started to age, and from wear and tear and many years of working, it's gotten less than it was. I don't think anybody's denying that, even the people that are really staunch defenders. I don't think anybody's denying that. The question is, I guess, whether or not you're going to actually go ahead and make a video about it or bring it up like it's a big deal, which I actually had a comment today from somebody that said, why do you have to talk about this? Do you have no topics left? You have nothing else to talk about on your channel? Why do you have to talk about this? I talk about it, excuse me, because I have a Beatles-related channel, and when there's something new and current in the news, I tend to give my views on that. I mean, that's a no-brainer. It didn't need me to explain that. And I guess what I just did there was a bonus talking point, because that's not one of the 10 that I have. Now, I've already wasted close to 3 minutes. I think it's valuable, but I hope you'll agree when I talk about where I stand on this. From time to time, I have said, I think maybe at this point, I have been one to say Paul should retire. Times I've said that. And I think, like, retire, when I say retire, I mean from live performances. I said, maybe the man should save his voice for studio recordings, because I think at the end of the day, although we all love to see Paul live, and I have 11 times, I think at the end of the day, it's the records that will survive, and that's what we want to have. But then I go through other times where I say, after I see a concert or something, I say to myself, this man was fantastic. I said that, for years. I said it in 2005. I said it when I saw him in 2011, 2016, 2017, 2022. Even with the hitting the rough patches in his performances and the voice changes, I came out saying this man could go on and on. There's no reason for this man to retire. So I've tried to be fair and balance both. And people who have been lucky to see him recently in New York City at the Bowery Ballroom said he was great, and he put on a great show. And it's a highlight of their lives as fans, and it should be, as well it should be. All right, so now let's go. I'm going to talk now about the top 10 points. I'll actually do them. I'm not going to do them from like most important to least important. I'm just going to name the 10 in any random order. We'll start with number 1. Number 1 being, people are asking me, what about Paul Simon's voice? Why don't you talk about Paul Simon? He was on Saturday Night Live, the 50th, and he didn't sound too good. Well, I did not think that Paul Simon sounded too good either, and I am a fan of Simon and Garfunkel and Paul Simon solo. So I feel a little saddened about that. However, this is primarily, as you may have noticed, a Beatles-related channel. That's the same reason I don't talk about. Somebody mentioned just today, I got a comment where they said, why don't you talk about Axl Rose? Why don't you talk about David Lee Roth? Their voices are terrible. Why don't you talk about that? I'm not interested. This is a Beatles-related channel. And in case you in case you haven't noticed, I'm a Paul fan and a Beatles fan. So that's my concern. I care about Paul. I care about Paul McCartney. I'm not as invested or interested in Axl Rose, David Lee Roth, and to a lesser extent, Paul Simon, because I do like Paul Simon quite a bit, but I don't really feature his information here. All right, so that's number one. Number two, it's very common. The most common response I get from people is this chestnut. He's 82 years old. What do you expect? Everybody knows why Paul sounds the way he does. He's 82. You're right. Hey, he's going to be 83 in this June. God bless him. And hopefully many more. But I'm saying, just because you state the obvious, obviously we know the reason why he sounds the way he does. He's older now. He's not 21 anymore. Obviously, that's why he sounds that way, his age, and also from years and years of really like shredding out his vocal cords from giving us such great songs and great live performances. I know the reason. Stating the reason he's 82. Oh, thank you for reminding me. I didn't realize that. Yeah, I understand what you're getting at, but I don't think that's a get out of jail free card. What I mean by that is there are other people that were in their late 70s or early 80s that sounded good. I mean, Tom Jones comes to mind, Tony Bennett comes to mind. So it's not just like, well, when you're that age, you're finished. So I just feel like, yeah, the man's 82. I take that into account. And I also want to say, sometimes I enjoy Paul's, people have called it his old man voice. I've enjoyed Paul's old man voice on songs like Early Days, where he sings it on the album called New from 2013. He sounds great. I would not like that song to be performed by a 22-year-old Paul McCartney. That song, Early Days, works well with his gravelly, older, wizened man voice because he's singing about his past and he's looking back on it. I also love the album McCartney 3, his most recent album. He's supposed to have a new one coming. But the most recent album from 2020, McCartney 3, he's obviously aged. His voice is elderly. His voice is not what it was, and I love it. I love McCartney 3. Right now, McCartney 3 is my favorite of the 3 McCartney solo albums. Okay, so, do you people out there like McCartney 3 as much as I do? Is it your favorite of the 3 solo McCartney albums? McCartney 2, McCartney 3? It's mine. And I love his voice, his older voice, because I think Paul, when he writes his new songs, he's writing new songs to tailor it to his limitations or where his voice is now. When he is singing old Beatles songs, I guess like Golden Slumbers, something he sang when he was in his 20s, maybe that's a little more challenging. Obviously, it's more challenging. By the way, one thing I want to say about that, again, refer back to this Saturday Night Live 50th anniversary Golden Slumbers performance. A lot of people are watching it and they're saying, it's not bad. Me too. When I first saw it live, when he did Saturday Night Live 50th, I thought live it was pretty tough. It was rough to take. I really was upset by it. Then when I played it back, it's now on YouTube and you can watch it. I watched it like several times. I think, it wasn't that bad. A lot of people are saying it's not that bad. I mean, Paul's had worse performances, let's face it, the Queen's Jubilee, when he did Oh Darling with Chrissy Hind, that was kind of rough. When he did the lockdown version of Lady Madonna a few years ago from Home, that was pretty rough. When he sang Maybe I'm Amazed 10 years ago at the 40th anniversary of Saturday Night Live, Maybe I'm Amazed 40th was worse than Golden Slumbers 50th. But I think that, back to the Saturday Night Live video that's up there on YouTube, when you watch it, a lot of people are saying, and I think I agree, I think a little sweetening was done. Yeah, when I watch the playback now that exists from Saturday Night Live on NBC, it seems like it's been a little, I don't know how, touched up, or it's not as, rough as it was if you caught it on the live broadcast. A lot of people seem to be saying that. All right, so now that's a little off topic, but let's go to number 3 here. Number 3, people say a lot of times, let's see how you sound at age 82. They say, like, you're criticizing Paul. They say, how are you going to sound when you're 82? I'd like to see you. I'd like to hear what you sound like. Well, first of all, that's just a tactic that people use all the time. That has no bearing on the reality. You're allowed to criticize or praise a person without having to sing yourself. I mean, it's like those people that say, when you come out of a movie in the movie theater and you say you didn't like this movie, sometimes people say, well, let's see if could you do any better? Let's see what kind of movie you could direct. It's got nothing to do with it. Sometimes they say to Roger Ebert or Gene Siskel, the movie critics, they'll say, well, what movies have you made lately, wise guys? What gives you the right to say it? They're critics. It's what they do, I mean, it doesn't matter how I would sound. That's number one. It has nothing to do. It's totally moot point. Number one, it doesn't matter how I would sound. And number two, the way I am, I think that if I sounded a little rough like that, I wouldn't go on stage. So that's how I would handle it. McCartney, he does have an ego. He has a big ego, and he does want to go out and keep performing. And we're grateful to him for that. But there'll be more of that later. Okay, let's do number 4. Number 4 is, I love this one. This one really cracks me up. I love this one. Paul McCartney can do whatever he wants. It's his right. It's not up to you to tell him to retire. It's Paul's decision when he retires. No argument for me. Obviously, I can't make Paul or anybody retire. I can't tell Paul not to play or anything like that. But again, what has that got to do with anything? The thing is, if he's going to play, if he's going to say, I'm not retiring, I'm going to keep going, believe it or not, I say, way to go, Paul, because he was great at the Bowery, even if maybe the Saturday Night Live wasn't as good. But if you're going to keep playing and you're not going to retire, then I have a right to say what I think. You don't want to retire, by all means, keep going. But I, as a fan of Paul, are going to watch it and listen and give my opinion. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean, I think what people are trying to say when they say that, if we really want to get down to it, what they're basically saying is, Paul can do whatever he wants. He doesn't have to retire. Now shut your mouth. You don't have any opinion. Hey, look, if you're going to put yourself out there, you're going to get feedback. That's what it is. Just like me, I put myself out there, I'm going to get feedback. He can still play if he wants, but if some people out there think that it wasn't so good, they're going to say it. Okay, now we go to number 5. Number 5 is when people say, you're not a real fan. People have this mentality that you're not a real fan if you criticize your heroes, or whatever word you want to use, idols, the people you enjoy, the artists you like. That's bull. That's just bull crap. I mean, I think I'm a real fan, huh? I mean, I think I'm a pretty big fan and a real fan. But the thing is, I think a real fan, it's what you call tough love. Like when you're a parent or something, and you have to tell your kids what they're doing wrong, or you have to give them some toughness. Where I love Paul, I love McCartney. Therefore, I feel it more when he doesn't sound his best, And he's not to the point like, say, Frankie Valli. I meant to mention that earlier. Back to he's 82. What do you expect? Now, some of you may have seen Frankie Valli of the Four Seasons, performing, and I use that term loosely. He's basically standing there, poor man, and he's just like, he's out of it. He's 90 years old. I don't know his exact age, but at least 90. And he's standing there, and they play the music, and he's just lip syncing, and he doesn't even know where he is, it looks like, God help him. And his mouth's just moving a little bit, like, he's not even like properly enunciating the words. People said he fell asleep in one of these videos. Now, the thing is, should you say, Well, he's 90 years old. What do you expect? The man's 90. What do you expect? I expect that he doesn't go on like that. Do we really want to see Paul at 199 up there if he's to that state? I'm not, and by the way, I'm not saying Paul has reached that state now. No, Paul is nowhere near that. But I'm just saying, how far do you want to take this any age goes routine? He can do whatever he wants routine. He shouldn't retire if he doesn't want to. I mean, how far do you take that? I think Frankie Valli is a good example. But yeah, back to the one point again of you're not a real fan. I am a big fan. I'm a real fan. And I'll tell you something. I'm a fan, not a sycophant. There's a difference between a sycophant and a fan, okay? And I think you do more respect to your musical heroes when you try to help, or you give your honest opinion. You call it as you see it, rather than sitting there making excuses and things. All right, number 6. Oh, this is great. All these are great. Number 6, I frequently heard this one. This is great. If you don't want to hear an 82-year-old man, then stay home and save your seat for someone else who does want to hear an 82-year-old man. Where do you get the right to tell me to stay home? First of all, I already said earlier, if you heard the beginning of the video, that I go to the shows. I mean, I've been to all those shows. I said 2005, 2011, 2016, 2017, 2022, and I came out of every one of those shows thinking he was pretty amazing, for his age. And I was like, I'd shake my head in approval. I'd say, I can't believe it. Paul amazed me. I have a right to go to the show, sit in a seat, and if I think it was a poor concert or he didn't sound good, I'll say that. If I thought that it was really great, he astounds me, this man, go Paul, this is fantastic, then I'll sit here and I'll praise the man to the hilt. Okay? But this business of don't go to the concert, because you don't want to hear him. I like to ask some of these people, do you have McCartney 3? Do you own the McCartney 3 album? And if so, do you honestly accept and love every song on it for Paul the way he sounds now? I do. Okay? In fact, one more thing about McCartney 3. The song I actually like the least on that album, believe it or not, is the last song, When Winter Comes, where he actually has a younger voice, because that song was recorded, I believe, in 1992. So he had more of his natural voice then, and that's the one people seem to single out as the best. Well, I prefer to hear Paul the way he sounds now. So you see how I can be fair about it either way? All right, let's go to number 7. We're going to try to speed this up a little bit, I hope. Number 7, you have to understand that Paul is in his 80s, and if his voice does sound like not what it was, that's only because he's been singing his heart out for us for 60 years. I understand that. I said it earlier. I understand that that's the reason why his voice sounds like that, because he's been singing for us for 60 years. Thank the Lord. Thank you, Paul. It is great. But that doesn't change the facts. What does that have to do with anything? You're driving an old car, and you say, this old car isn't what it used to be. It keeps breaking down. Smoke starts coming out of the engine. The windshield wipers aren't working. This exhaust muffler explosions. And you say, well, you got to understand, the car is 30 years old. You got to understand that. What does that got to do with us getting from A to B? You know what I mean? The reality is we can't get from A to B. It doesn't matter why. And that's also, when people say that, that's an effort again to try to sweeten everything, to try to sugarcoat everything. All right, I like this one too. Paul doesn't have anything left to prove. I agree, 1,000,000%. Paul McCartney has nothing to prove. He's done it all. He's got nothing left to prove. But now, I'll say this. Why don't you tell that to Paul? See, I don't think Paul McCartney has anything left to prove. You don't think Paul McCartney has anything left to prove. But apparently, Sir Paul McCartney thinks he's got something to prove because he keeps doing it. And I really feel like he's worried about his legacy, and I really think he wants to show he can still do it. As I say, bully for him, great for him. But I don't think Paul's got anything left to prove. See, he could stop live performance, but he wants to do it not for the money. That's another thing out there. You people think he wants the money. Paul doesn't need the money. He's rich into the billions. He doesn't need the money. He does it because he likes doing it. He loves performing. It's what he does. Probably helps keep him young, just like Ringo Starr keeps performing. It keeps them active. It keeps them going, and they love the adulation of the crowd. They like the response. They like the crowd appreciating them. So for the most part, people still love the shows. And they still go and they still salute him and applaud him, even if he doesn't sound like he used to. And that's a good thing. But number 9 we'll go into. I like when people say this, number 9. Paul doesn't have to do this, He's doing you a favor. He doesn't have to perform anymore. Like, he's doing this for us and not for himself. I mean, Paul is performing partly for the fans, for us, for the audience. That's the idea. That's the idea of performance. But he's also, as I said the last comment, he's also doing it because he wants to do it. He needs to do it. He's been doing this since he was a teenager, and he's going to be 83 this June. He needs it for himself. He has to do it for himself. Not about us so much. Now, here's the last one. I put this one at the end because this is a good way to sum this up and do a poignant ending. Number 10, just be grateful that Paul is still here. Cherish Paul while you still can. One day he's going to be gone, and when he's gone, what are you going to say then? Look, I do cherish Paul. We are so blessed to have this man at almost 83 years old, making albums, doing television appearances, going out on the road, giving new generation after new generation of new generation to hear him. It is a gift. It is. And I hope he continues as long as he can maybe get a little more voice control live and in the studio give us albums. And the albums, when you're in the studio, you can work on the track a little more, tweak a few things here or there. But please don't think that I don't cherish Paul. I do. But I just want to make it clear again that you can cherish Paul, know that you're lucky, know that we're blessed to be with the man, and he's still here with us all the way into 2025. And at the same time say, that was a really good performance. That performance was so-so. That performance was rock bottom. That's what it really comes down to. You can still love the man, cherish the man, be glad he's here, but say the truth. And again, some people may quibble with that, like, well, the truth, it's a matter of opinion. It's all subjective. There are people who think he sounded good on Saturday Night Live. I didn't think it, I don't know if it's good. It may be, you want to say okay, maybe. Even that I wonder. But I'm all over the map here. I got all my thoughts out, I think, folks. We love Paul. We want Paul to be here as long as he can. We want Paul to be active, vibrant, to keep on getting out there, be available for all of us to see. But if a fan like me, who really loves him and really wants him to sound as good as he can for his age, and I don't think it was as good. I don't think Saturday Night Live was as good as he can for his age. I've heard him sound better. One last thing. I forgot this. I'm glad I remembered it. Here is a video of Paul McCartney, Glastonbury. Look at the date. June of 2022. The man turned 80. He's 80 here. And I thought this was a good performance. Quite a good performance. So much so that I actually got a Blu-ray of it. Okay? I'm a fan. The thing is, he's very good in that one. I'm going to say it. I'm not going to say he's good if I didn't feel he was. And I don't have to give back my Paul McCartney membership card to do that. Cheers, everybody. Enjoy Paul.